Hello, my dear friends. This is Rabbi Aharon Dobinsky coming to you today from the holy city of Yerushalayim, Jerusalem, Israel. I'm going to borrow some material today from somebody I've respected for many, many years. If you don't know him or if you're not familiar with his work, I suggest you go online, check him out. He's all over the place. His name is Rabbi Lord Yonatan Sachs. He's been Niftar for a while, but his stories are still coming out in some publications in Israel. And this weekend, he did something for Ha'azinu that I thought was exceptional and something I'd like to share with you. So I want to just explain what he said. In Ha'azinu, it says that when Moshe died, it talks about what happened to Moshe just prior to his death. It says that his eyes were undimmed and his natural force unabated. It's a great physical description of somebody's life. You know, he still had moisture in his hands, whereas a lot of people of a certain age begin to lose that and get kind of dried up. And the physical picture of this is something that everybody can relate to. But that's not what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about something far beyond that, something of a more spiritual nature, which he talked about. And he talked about it in the fact that it's not just a depiction of physicality, it's a depiction of where Moshe Rabbeinu was in his life at 120 years old, beyond what anybody else could see. And the fact is, his eyes were undimmed. He saw everything. He saw things as it were. Remember, he was 40 years with the children of Israel. He had to fight with Pharaoh to take them out. He had to fight with them when he got them out. They were complaining about this. We were complaining about that. We were complaining about everything. And he had to go through all this. A lesser man would have gone, phooey, who needs this? Who needs all this aggravation? And then would have walked away from it. But not Moshe Rabbeinu. He saw what was going on, and in spite of everything, he stayed with the children of Israel. He stayed with them to guide them. He even says at the end, he says, I know what's going to happen is when I'm gone, you're going to go away from Hashem's laws because you did it while I was here, and I couldn't stop you. And if I couldn't stop you when I was here, I certainly can't stop you when I'm in the next world. But he saw what was going on, so he knew how to deal with it. He knew that his job was far beyond anything human, and I use that term advisedly, but it was beyond what he could normally do, or beyond what anybody could normally do, to come through the aggravation and all the things he did. And he came through it with flying colors, because at the end, he was still very much loving these people who made his life really, really, really hard, but he still loved them. They were God's chosen, and because they were Hashem's chosen, he loved them, and he loved them, and he was supposed to take them to Israel. Now, you're talking about a man who didn't even get to go where they were going. He was not allowed to go into Israel. You would think a person like that might be bitter. Look what I've been through. Look what I've done. I put up with all this shtus from these people. Now you let them go into Israel, but I can't go? I can't go? Why can't I go? Now, Hashem had his reasons. We're not going to go into that right now. But the fact is, that was just a fact, and he realized it. And was he bitter about it? Well, let's say he wasn't happy about it. And he begged with Hashem to please let him go in, and the answer was still no. Once he realized the answer was no, he put that behind him, and he moved forward with the people. Everything he did with the people. It's a lesson for all of us to learn that sometimes difficult people in our lives that we're trying to help them. We're trying to do what's best for them. We're trying to have them do what's best for them. And they fight us every step of the way. And everybody, if you are an observant Jew, you certainly understand this because you've probably been through this with people very close to you or people who are not so close to you. But you've tried. You've tried to bring them into the fold, and they've fought you tooth and nail every step of the way. Lesser people like us might just say, phooey, who needs all this? I don't need this aggravation. Why would I put myself through this for people who don't even care? Well, you put yourself through it because you want them to care. Now, I've often gone on record as telling people one of the most frustrating things in life is to want something for someone else more than they want it for themselves. And it is. It truly is. It is frustrating. However, there are certain things that are worth the fight. Bringing people closer to Hashem is one of them. And that's what Moshe Rabbeinu was doing. So it wasn't just that his eyes were undimmed. His eyes could see what had happened, and they were willing to continue even on that basis. Difficult for an ordinary person, but for Moshe Rabbeinu, this was not an ordinary person. He was beyond this. And he was able to see what was coming. Also, if you just let me look at this again, his natural forces were unabated. What does that mean? What are natural forces? Can you press 100 pounds? If you can press 100 pounds, that's one of your natural forces. If you can press 200 pounds, that's one of your natural forces. Your natural forces dictate what you can and what you can't do. His were unabated. It means he didn't have anything taking him back. Usually when someone gets to be in their hundreds, they get weaker. Their brain gets a little soft. Their eyes get a little dim, physically dim. Not Moshe Rabbeinu. His eyes were undimmed, and he did not. His physical prowess was unabated, which meant he could do things that some people maybe not could do. You know, there are many people who at the age of 25, for all the facts that they're breathing and everything else, they're alive, but emotionally, physically, spiritually, etc., they might just as well not be. However, there are people up in their hundreds who are extremely alive, more alive than some of these people down in their 20s. Why? Because that's their choice. If you recall, I told you a few weeks ago, my grandfather, Alder Sholem, used to say, when you stop learning, you stop growing. And when you stop growing, you start dying. None of us want to be in that boat. None of us think that that's going to ever happen to us. Most people, if you talk to them about death, they've had a fleeting thought about it or two, just kind of pass through their mind, goes back, but they don't give it a whole lot of thought. That's why so many men who die in late in life have no insurance for their family, because they never really believed in their own minds that one day they would actually not be there to take care of them. So it's a thought that we have to deal with. But Moshe Rabbeinu didn't deal with that thought. He just kept going on and on as if he was going to live forever, even knowing that today, which was his birthday, was also going to be the day of his death. He knew it. He knew when his time had come. Most people do not know that. We have a feeling because the patriarchs at their time asked Hashem to give us some kind of indication that we might be leaving this world, so we would know to get our affairs in order, which he did. Sickness, illness, and all the things that come to people in later life. Moshe Rabbeinu didn't have this. He didn't have this because of the kind of person he was. His thought was not necessarily for him alone. As a matter of fact, it wasn't at all for him alone. It was for his people and for their connection with their Father in heaven. That's what his thoughts were. Therefore, he saw things, and he saw what was happening. And he moved on in spite of it because he had the strength to move on in spite of it. Rabbi Sachs talks in his piece about many people he talked to who were in their 90s and 100s. And why did they have the strength to move on the way they did? One person says because they had to keep learning. They had to keep growing. That was their thought, and they wanted to keep doing it better. Another one says, because when I was in my 90s, I realized that the door was closing, and I had far too much to do before the door continued and kept closing, and then was eventually closed and didn't allow me to do what I needed to do. So I knew I had to move faster. I had to do more, and that's exactly what this person did. He moved faster, and he did more. So let's take this as a lesson for ourselves. We don't know when our time has come. We don't know what's going to be out there. We don't know as we get older what's going to happen to us. I'm 70 now, and I got to tell you, I don't see it. I feel like I'm 25, and you should too. Stick around people who have young ideas, people who have young thoughts, people who have young children. I was just talking to my Rebbitzin the other day, and I mentioned that we only have about 2 or 3 couples who are our age. Most of the people that we know who are our friends are much younger than us. And perhaps that's why we live a life that is based on young at heart and young in thought. So I wish you all the same for this coming year. It's a good way to start off the year to remind yourself you don't live forever, but while you're here, make your mark. Do what you're supposed to do. Get all the work done that you're supposed to do. Touch all the people that you're supposed to touch. Do all the things that you know you were placed on this planet for. And if you don't know what they are, back to Hitboderdu, you ask Hashem. He'll be more than happy to let you know. And having said that, I wish you all a good Shabbos, a good New Year. You should have all you want to have. You should have a good Gebench Jor. You should have prosperity, good health, lots of children if you're young, and healthy children if you're not. And for all that, be well, my friends. God bless.